realistically, we have 16 hours of the day to break up, and you still couldn't make it work. Now it's like the needs is like 25 hours a day because you've added all this stuff on it. So it's really challenging for caregivers.
Hi, this is Unlimited Access. My name is Levi.
Hi, I'm Shannon Aylesworth.
Shannon, today what we want to talk about is caregiver burnout.
Yeah.
Right? And just understanding of it all, because it's just not easy. Being a caregiver it doesn't really matter who you're a caregiver for. You had a life before you were a caregiver, and now you want to maintain that life plus be a caregiver. And something's got to give. It's like it's like a three-legged stool, right? Your health, your mentality, or your whatever. And being a caregiver, you could just get burned out.
Yeah.
Let's kind of take it out of like some aspects of being a caregiver and just focus on work-life balance. What's work-life balance for caregivers? I mean, you did it. What is that?
I do it now. It's almost not, and it's actually... We talked about this before, I think, in the past, but not in the context now of how much worse it's gotten, and how can the medical community help caregiver burnout. I think that's kind of where we're starting from, is looking at the articles like work life. Life has become really challenging for caregivers, where it used to be, hey, I can do work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, and caregive for my children on the side because they're in school and get a sitter after work. That was the challenge. Now and I think there's some studies, I just saw a study for primary care, but I'd love to look on the caregivers, how many hours in a day that they need now to do their job, get their children in and out of school, to their health appointments, and now their parents, and then their own chronic illnesses that they're trying to manage. Work-life balance has probably gone from, like, you were trying to split up. Realistically, we have 16 hours of the day to break up, and you still couldn't make it work. Now it's like the needs is like 25 hours a day because you've added all this stuff on it. So it's really challenging for caregivers now, because work-life balance, everybody says it, but it used to just be like a 50-50 split, work and family. Now it's work and family because of chronic illnesses. So it's really exhausting. I think we talk about it all the time on just how do we enable and empower the caregivers. But the big topic is how do we look at the caregiver's health as well?
Well, to correct me if I'm wrong, there aren't 25 hours in a day.
That would be correct.
That's right. So it's just really hard. It's a challenge, and it's something that needs to be addressed. So it seems like managing work and caregiving, it's just a big challenge. It's not only a time management challenge, but what other aspects of challenging could it be?
I think time. I always go to time because it's one of the longest. I'm going to pull the article up that I was just looking at, because it's one of the biggest detractors of your life. But it is, to your point, it's time to do stuff. So taking your children to their appointments, getting your parents to their appointments. Chronic care management, like we said, think about it, 12 patients on polychronic. And that used to be an older person problem. It's now younger kids. Mm-hmm. And so if you've got to do, and we said 25 hours in a day, primary care, they said it actually is like 36 hours they would need in a day to service all their patients. Mm-hmm. So the requirement on time, that's why we always focus on that. It's just gotten so out of control. Other pieces of caregiving are just the mental stress of not being able to get your child help or your parent help, or trying to manage care transitions. Care transitions is a huge topic right now. I've had 3 people text me in the last 2 weeks maybe that are caregivers that are saying, oh my God, the transition out of the hospital to the next step of care was so poorly handled, and they had to stop their whole life to go help just manage the communication and the choices that their parent had to make going from the hospital to an outpatient, maybe an outpatient rehab, maybe to the home. Now you've got to think, okay, my parent just had a stroke as a result of hypertension. Stroke, now they're coming home. Now you've got to proof the house so that person doesn't hurt themselves or fall or some other thing. Again, I don't know. Clearly, I'm not a medical person. A nurse could come on and be like, oh, yeah, let me tell you the 5 things you need to do. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I've got to order supplies. Like, that was the weirdest thing for me. It's why I love Carewell. Shout out to Carewell, because they've consolidated all of the places that old people buy supportive. So it used to be like, hey, my mom's old. She needs a toilet seat that's soft. They've built a marketplace for the aging population's medical needs, assisted stuff. So railings for the shower, railings for your, my dad's got one step and he has fallen off that thing. One step. The only thing he has to do is, and I'm calling myself out, the only thing he's got to grab when he goes down that step is a pole. So if he's not near that, he's got to get down it, and he's got neuropathy in his leg, so he'll fall. So yeah, so there's all these little things of that, and then the guilt. I mean, went outside last summer and looked down, and my dad was on the ground. I'm like, what happened? Well, yeah, because I don't have a railing. He went outside to get some fresh air. He's got one floor. I think I have the best setup for him. And there's 2 steps, and he tried to get up the steps, and he no feeling in his feet, didn't make the step and fell. Fortunately, like those of us who fall off our horses and other things, we aim for whatever's the softest. So he knew how to fall to not hurt himself. Well, we don't want that either. So that's the stresses of caregiving. Is it's so beyond just time, but it is all of the things that you're trying to do to prepare your house, which I think there's more information. There's more information on child-proofing, helping your child get through. You have groups for parenting and all that. There's a known predictability with parents. Of course, there's a generational gap there too. But for chronic illness management, that knowledge is really limited and what you've got to do. So every day for a caregiver is an emergency. Every day. Even if there isn't an emergency, everything is an emergency because you're one step away from falling or some other issue.
So managing the work-life balance, right, in this caregiving, this challenge.
Yeah.
We were talking about it from a calendar perspective, and you keep mentioning time, but it seems to me it's like it's an organizational thing. Time is one aspect of organization, but there's like a task list. There's like the task list of shopping is what you're talking about in this challenge, right? And so I kind of think about like in our professional lives, we have Microsoft Outlook.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's more than just
well, and
calendar.
what do we do to make our what does IT do to make you as an employee effective in your job?
Right.
Yeah.
So, is Ursamin kind of like that? Like Microsoft Outlook?
That's a great yes. I think you just wrote our tagline. Because think about that's such a great analogy. Look at Brilliance by Levi. No, that's a really great analogy because think about it like in a company. And they love to say caregivers are the CEO of their life. Well, who doesn't empower the CEO? You'd never see a CEO who doesn't have the tools to run their life. Right. Instead, it's, hey, everybody else, hey, we're giving you the tools provider by provider. You've got to go to Carewell. You've got to go to all these other places. We're like, no, we're your IT team. We're going to bring this all into one place. We're going to try and streamline this. Now, you've got to tell us what you want us to add because every employee, every CEO likes their own platform. So that's the big challenge that the healthcare community has with servicing caregivers and patients is everybody likes their own different app. Like in the IT world, you'd probably see like 90% of the users have Salesforce or some other tool like that. In the consumer world, you love your Apple, man. I might only have Android. So that's the big challenge of that's where we came into saying, how do we manage and bring your tool sets that you want? How do we feed data into your shared calendar that you want? You want Apple, you want Android. That's a big, tall ask, but it is.
You were talking about it in terms of multiple roles. And I think about Microsoft Outlook or whatever tool we use to manage our office space, right? Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like I have one role. Levi, the content producer for Ursamin, right?
Yeah.
Well, that'd be like me being one patient.
Right.
And the thing is, going back to what you originally said, the caregiver has multiple roles. They're juggling all of these multiple roles.
That's a great point, too.
So it's like I'm caregiver for my children, maybe caregiver for my spouse, maybe caregiver for my parents.
Siblings.
So
I know people have siblings. They have siblings. Mental health has really become another additional. It's not just the health, but mental health. I was surprised to see. I have a friend that she said, oh my God, mental health. I've had more people say mental health. I'm like, really? I'm like, but I thought like that's not healthy. They're like, no, his information is still everywhere. They still need that transition. They still need their physical health along with mental health. Yeah, and they're playing such a different role in every way. And they're having to deal with all of those people's preference for tools, Apple versus Android, that all of a sudden, because you got kids who want, they're all super techie. And your parents are not, so they've got to juggle. Yeah, I'm like, Wow, that poor caregiver. Us poor caregivers, man. It's coming down. It's gonna get worse. Somebody, I just read it. I read something that it was one of these other articles that we have said the Armageddon of healthcare. Kaiser just had a 75,000 worker strike today. I don't know if you know that, but all their nurses, yeah, because not enough help. They're not streamlining. They're not streamlining the administrative work, so the nurses are just getting pummeled with admin work that gets shoved off to the caregiver or whatever, and so they're put in dangerous situations of patient risk, and you don't put healthcare people where they're risking patients' lives. They get really angry.
Sounds like a show for another time.
Yeah, it'd be a great conversation.
It would be a great one. So, so understanding the caregiver in this burnout, it's a challenge. It's hard managing all these different, juggling these roles and et cetera. Is there any final thought or recommendation you have for the caregiver, this work-life balance and juggling multiple roles?
There's so many. It's all going to depend on your situation. I think the more I think I mentioned this before, I saw a post in one of the caregiving groups that says we need to stand up. We need to ask for, we as caregivers need to agree on what will help us. It's easy. It's hard for me to, it's easy for me to ask that. It's hard for them, you caregivers, to respond to that, because at times you don't know you've got all these demands, and that's been a generational issue. Women saying, I got to be a mother, a sister, a brother, but really sitting down and saying, what will help you? What will help you? In some scenarios, somebody just needs to go to the spa for the day. We love David's Refuge, right? Because they just give respite care to caregivers. There's this article that we are looking at is 9 tips for balancing work and caregiving. And we have an article as well, or blog that we wrote on that. The ones that inspire me the most are using technology, because a lot of people, especially our age and above, will say, I'm technology illiterate. Trust that the technology that's out there today is a lot easier and user-friendly than it used to be. But their experiences might be with work tools, especially healthcare caregivers. That is such a legacy technology that you're like, it's a burden as opposed to something that helps me save time. So I think things like that, this one in particular, don't stretch yourself thin. If I was a caregiver and sent me that and I read that, I'd probably give them the bird, because I'd be like, are you kidding me? Thanks, Captain Obvious, right? So I think it really makes sense that we as a group participate in the groups, speak up for what you think would help you the most. Mm-hmm. What's the number one thing? I get asked this all the time. What's the number one thing caregivers want? And to be honest, I don't know that I can answer that question. I can tell you from a technology perspective, it's a shared calendar. But that's the biggest problem they have today. Okay, if I solve that problem, then what? Take stock of your life and tell us, in order of these 9 things, we're blasting 9 things at you, or 10 things that say, here's advice. Well, tell me what you want. Could you stack rank them? We're doing surveys on that, by the way. Hey, could you stack rank what would help you the most? Right. Because then we can try and incorporate it.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's great.
To wrap, I just want to remind everybody that, here at Ursamin, we believe patients, caregivers, people, the whole team makes better health decisions when all the information's all in one place. And that's what we're really trying to do. So thank you so much, Shannon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.